Welcome to This Week, a weekly look back on the news from the past week. My name is Tony of the Underpaid Gamers, and this week we are talking about the week of Thanksgiving 2017, November 20th. The most popular game on the planet, Pokemon, was released in 1996. There's a total of 76 games that you could get your grubby hands on. There has been 300 million copies shipped around the world. Adding to that, last week, with the release of Ultra Sun and Moon, they sold 1.2 million copies in 3 days in Japan, despite lackluster reviews saying that the game was very repetitive of the prequel to that, Sun and Moon, that was released in 2016. Nintendo has gone on record to say that Ultra Sun and Moon will be the last copy of Pokemon to be sold on the 3DS. Hopefully, they will be making the transfer over to the Nintendo Switch, which seems to be the console that they are most focused on. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is still in the news based on its controversial loot box system. Our good friends over in Belgium have stated that the loot boxes in the game are going to be under investigation for predatory actions against children. The Justice Minister of Belgium calls for a ban of these types of loot boxes in all of EU. While Belgium's Gaming Commission has not made a final decision on whether to ban the game or not, they are open to discussion and they are still investigating the cause. Hawaii State Representative Chris Lee announces in a video titled EA Predatory Behavior Announcement. In the video, referring specifically to Star Wars Battlefront 2 and its loot boxes, he says, "These kinds of loot boxes and microtransactions are explicitly designed to prey upon and exploit human psychology in the same way casino games are so designed. This is especially true for young adults, who child psychologists and other experts explain are particularly vulnerable. These exploitative mechanisms and this deceptive marketing promoting them have no place in games being marketed to minors, and perhaps no place in games at all." He takes a firm stance against Star Wars Battlefront 2 and EA, essentially saying that what they are doing with their loot boxes is not good for not only the community, but for the psychology of children that are playing these games. He also calls for more states to be invested in this cause and to look more deeply into it, and hopefully with the help of the public, they can make some sort of difference in the future. Some disgruntled fans have taken matters into their own hands, creating a petition on change.org demanding from Disney that they cut ties with EA and their Star Wars license. EA signed a deal with Disney in 2013 to have exclusive rights to the Star Wars name. It's a 10-year deal, which would end the earliest in 2023. We are less than halfway through the contract. It has been 4 years, and only 2 games really have been released since the deal was signed: Star Wars Battlefront 1 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. There have been a mobile game, I don't know how popular that was, and a lot of add-ons for Knights of the Old Republic, which actually came out before the deal was issued. The petition in question is calling for Disney to end its ties with EA and currently has just under 25,000 signatures, which might not be enough to even get on the blip of Disney. EA has had a pretty terrible track record with Star Wars games, closing just recently Visceral Studios that was working on a single-player Star Wars game. However, they picked up Respawn Entertainment, which has a Star Wars game attached. If that was to be released, they would now have a grand total of 3 Star Wars games in 4 years. The lackluster appeal of Star Wars Battlefront 2 has brought a lot of distaste from the community. Cleveland Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert has invested in eSports, and he is not the first one to do so. There are 17 teams, part of the NBA, that have invested and signed on to help with the NBA 2K eSports League. But Dan Gilbert has also invested in League of Legends, giving a multi-million-dollar deal to the League of Legends team 100 Thieves, ran by ex-professional Call of Duty gamer Nadeshot. Dan Gilbert isn't the first to make a big multi-million deal such as this. There have been quite a few reputable names and sports industries that have risen to the cause to invest in esports. And finally, new releases of the week. Disney and Pixar's Coco was released on November 22nd, receiving $49 million its opening weekend. This is the 4th largest ever, behind other Disney Pixar films, Frozen, Moana, and Toy Story 2. Coco, with a $49 million opening, was the king of Thanksgiving weekend, beating out Justice League in its 2nd week on the market. That's really it. That's all I have for this week. Again, it was a short week, Thanksgiving and all. You can find us on Twitter at UPGamersPodcast. Email us at underpaidgamerspodcast@gmail.com. Leave a like, a comment, a dislike if you so choose. I will see you guys next week.